Hi everybody, I'm Stephanie from Razzle Dazzle Rabbitry Yarns LLC. Today we're going to talk about how to spin a more consistent yarn. So a lot of the videos that I have are spinning art yarns like a spiral ply or a bauble yarn, but there aren't many videos of spinning a more consistent yarn. And there's quite a few things that go into the makeup of a more consistent yarn, and some of these things are learned over time, and some of these things are more instant, such as the tools that you use. So one of the first things through experience that became apparent, as well as other resources that I've learned, is the way you process the fiber that you've chosen matters, which obviously means the fiber that you choose. If you know you're setting out and you want to spin a consistent yarn, the actual fiber that you choose matters. So if there's a lot of second cuts, if there's a lot of webbing, or if there's matting, if the locks themselves, if the fibers themselves are really clumped together, this isn't going to be something which gives you an easy, consistent yarn. You're going to have to fight with your fiber and fight with it to make it smooth out. So this is a bat that has been carded twice. It's about 50% Gotland lamb wool that has been washed and 50% German Angora wool. The staple lengths are about the same for the fibers, and it's a very, very lofty, lot of air between the fiber type bat. So that's not to say that you cannot spin a consistent yarn from fibers that are more tight together. It's just when they're spread apart, this is much easier to spin, at least for myself. So spinning is just adding twist. We use our spinning wheel to add twist to the yarn. And on your spinning wheel, you have all sorts of different things that you can adjust. So you can adjust, for example, the speed at which you're treadling. You can adjust the tension. You can adjust the ratio by adjusting your drive band. But before any of that, considering the actual wheel, the actual tool that you're using to try and spin a consistent yarn is important. So this wheel is the Ashford Elizabeth II. This wheel has a very large wheel on it compared to Bob, the Ashford Kiwi that I have. And Bob is kind of an all-purpose spinning wheel. He can do it all. Elizabeth is really made to spin a firm, consistent, thin yarn. The setup of the wheel itself is simply that's what this wheel was designed for. So choosing, if we set out and we know we're going to want to spin a thin, consistent yarn, a smooth yarn, we are going to choose the Elizabeth II over Bob, because this wheel is simply designed to produce what we're trying to spin. And that's something that if you don't have a wheel or don't have access to a wheel that was designed to spin thin, consistent yarn, that's okay too. It's simply a matter of learning on whatever wheel you have, because there's a significant price difference between both of these wheels. So while we're spinning, the left hand is feeling the yarn. It's feeling for the consistency of the actual strand itself. It's feeling for any lumps. The right hand is participating in the drafting of the fiber. So let's get a closer look. So you're using many different senses when you're spinning yarn. You're using your sense of touch, so being able to feel the consistency in the yarn. You're using the sight, so being able to see how much is being drafted. You also can feel, for example, when this yarn is being drafted, if it's really, really pulling, or if it's really flowing smoothly, or if it's going too fast, if it's getting too drafted too fast. These are all things that over time you develop, which is something else that is of consideration. It's quite simply the experience of trying and continuing to try over and over and over to spin a consistent yarn, and being able to have control over the type of yarn that you produce. And this is something at first which, if you want to dive into it, that's wonderful. However, there's also a beauty in letting the fiber do whatever it wants to do. So this fiber wants to spin thin. Angora is the individual fibers themselves are thin fibers, so therefore it wants to spin up into a thin yarn. Different fibers, such as when I was spinning a lot of Romney for a while, it doesn't want to spin thin. It wants to spin a bit thicker because the individual Romney fibers are thicker. And so we just keep going and going and going. Now after we're done spinning, here's a little lump, and you can see that. So part of this too is learning how to fix these little mistakes. And so untwisting a little bit and pulling apart the fibers just enough, it'll start straightening that out. Or if there's a second cut in there, or if there's a piece of vegetable matter, actually stopping when you're spinning and pulling it out rather than just letting it continue onto the bobbin. Experience would also tell you that if your hands are getting tired, or if you're not concentrating, or if you're just, the yarn isn't working for you, experience would say, stop, try spinning a different yarn, but don't push it. If it's not working, something's up. If you can't figure it out, then come back a different day. I find that over the course of a day, if I spin right away in the morning, my yarn simply is a more consistent yarn compared to if I'm spinning later in the day, where my hands have been doing things all day, my hands have been working all day. It just seems that my hands function and do a bit better in the morning right away. Perhaps it's a part of being more patient as well, I'm not quite sure. So after the spinning of the single is finished, the next important part is the plying of the single, because the twist that you put in by plying, remember we ply in the opposite direction of how we spun the yarn, but the twist that we put in when we're plying, if we are plying and we're not paying attention, and we're plying yarn that has some sections are tightly plied, some sections are loosely plied, that's going to affect the consistency, the look of the consistency of the yarn. It's also going to affect the feel of the yarn. The different sections are not going to feel the same when you're going to use it. So yarn that's tightly plied is going to feel harder. It's not going to feel as fluffy as yarn that is plied more loosely. And if you have both together in a skein, that's gonna make the look of an inconsistent skein of yarn. So even if you've spun a single perfectly consistent and you go to ply it and it's sloppy with plying and it's not consistent with the ply, it takes that strand And there's things you can try to do, like when you're setting the twist, when you're washing it, you can try, the hot soak, the cold soak. You can try the thwacking it. There's different things you can try to kind of even out the twist when you're setting the twist and kind of help and disperse the energy of the yarn. However, depending on how it was plied, this may not correct completely all of the issues. But don't give up. When you're spinning and you keep trying and trying and trying and trying and trying, there's a place in our yarn community for all of the yarns. There's a place for everything that's made. There's a place for the consistent neutral yarns. There's a place for the bulky, vibrant art yarns. There's a place for all of it. So keep trying. Or if you haven't started yet, then just start. Thanks for sitting with me today and listening about how to spin a more consistent yarn. Hit the bell and the subscribe button to get the rest of the new videos that we will have coming out about all things Angora and fiber arts. We have a podcast. It's a bit more personal. It's a bit more of the business side of fiber arts for us. That can be found on acre.fm. The link is in the show notes below. And also, feel free to check out our website, razzledazzlerabbitry.com. Thanks for watching.